All right, I'm Nick. Today I am going to go over the comments that were left on the video about the Garmin Force Current, okay? I'm just going to go through them and talk about it. Before I do that, remember, we have the Garmin Force Current on order. I'm excited about it, okay? Do I think it is the end-all solution? No. Do I think it is expensive? Yes. Go into more of that stuff when we read the comments. But I sent out an email to Crescent, and I told Crescent that I thought the Shoaly was a perfect example of a kayak that the Garmin Force Current would be installed on and used on, and they got back to me and they're going to get us a Crescent Shoaly, okay? We are buying it directly from them for a discounted price. I always try to be open about that stuff, okay? I might reach back out to the contact. He was super helpful, and ask about getting a Smallie with that same deal. So if you guys want to see the Smallie tested with the Garmin Force Current, go down there, leave a comment. That way I can tell him, hey, there's a lot of engagement for the Shoaly and the Smallie, and then maybe we'll get both of them at a discounted rate, which helps us out. It's tough making those videos, okay? Especially it's a kayak that we don't, or a kayak company that we don't produce a lot of random parts for like we do the Old Towns, okay? Anyway, so we're going to go into these comments. I know the last video, there was a comment about it was a waste of his time. And he's not wrong, man. I wanted to know your guys' thoughts before I just dove in there and gave all of mine. So we're going to go to the comments. I got them pulled up on the computer. Maybe I'll take some screenshots and overlay them as I go through them. I guess we're going to go through it in reverse order. There's a comment here from 2 hours ago. $3,000 question mark, no thanks. Remember, that's $3,000 without the pedals, okay? $3,600 for the unit that has the pedal system. And the pedals aren't just steering, the pedals is propulsion, okay? I saw a comment about that too. We'll go into more details about that. Can't wait to see your videos when you test the motor. I hope it'll work on my Sportsman 120 PDL. I think it will. I think it will. And one of the big problems with putting it on the back of an Old Town 120 PDL is it has to be offset from the rudder typically, and then you have to use the rudder to steer. But if you can install this on the back of the PDL and then use your feet to steer and just put your rudder up, that'll be really cool. We'll hopefully see how that works. We'll probably end up putting it on the back of a 120 Pro PDL. This has some real cool features. I think it is underpowered for the price. Will I get one? Maybe not the first generation. Good information. Okay, I like to look at Garmin as a quality company, and I hate that there's such a stigma behind first gen things. I love Garmin fish finders. I don't really care about like their watches and all that stuff. I've had a few. I got one for my son to run track or whatever. It works, okay. But I like Garmin fish finders. I like the user interface. I'm hoping that usability rolls into the trolling motor. Wow, at first I didn't even know what you were talking about. Yeah, that's pretty common. I imagine some people were watching the video like, what is this dude rambling about? Stopped your video, watched the Force video. Sounds really interesting. The thing is, my MK106 already has that function with the foot steering. It does have function with the foot steering, but don't get confused between you have the throttle. With the foot steering on those pedals, that is your power. So forward, backwards, left, right. It's going to be interesting, okay? It says it's a hard sell for him. He's got an NK180 and a 2-horsepower Honda outboard I could use. He said he's sure that some tournament dudes will eat it up. Very possible. Another comment about the price range. $3,000 to start. It's a great setup, but it's out of my price range. That's going to be common. I don't know what I'll pay yet, but we are a Garmin authorized dealer, so we'll get a little bit of a break on that for us to test it out, which helps us out a ton, right? Because it is expensive. Any thoughts on whether this could be mounted on an Old Town PDL? Since it's a stern mount, only flip the rudder up. Whoa, can't read. Only the flip down rudder is going to be an issue. Remember, if you can steer with that trolling motor, the rudder is irrelevant to you. Pop it up, steer with it. Then when you want to pedal and use the rudder, just put the rudder back down. It's one lever. Wait, you said it has spot lock as an anchor mode? If so, this is definitely worth looking at. All we need to know is the speed of them now. It does have an anchor mode, right? And you can activate that via the remote or the foot pedals. You can actually like push in on the foot pedal and it'll just instantly spot lock you or anchor you where you are. My first thought is, how would I attach that to the back of a 2019 Old Town Predator PDL? That one might be hard because I don't think that one actually has the mounting plate and it's round, doesn't have the Charlotte Lure anchor, so we'll see what we can do about that. Hey Nick, you make a lot of great aftermarket accessory. Any chance you make an aftermarket trolley? He said we make good parts, okay? And then he said, will we make an aftermarket mount that would allow you to pretty much put it on multiple kayaks? Man, every kayak is so different. It already comes with the shallow water anchor footprint, so it's going to get you in the game. You might need different adapters for different kayaks depending on where that mount is, okay? But we won't know any of that information until we have it in our hands and we can look at things. Thing looks amazing. Hopefully they can release a 36 volt one next year, then I'm all in. I replied, I said, do you think 24 volts will be enough? He said a 36 volt version would be faster, and dumb second reason, I already have a battery. That's not a dumb reason, man. That's one of the best things about it being 12 volts and 24 volts is if you have a 12 volt battery or a 24 volt battery, you're good to go out of the gate, right? That means the barrier to entry for someone, if it was just 24 volts and they didn't have a 24 volt, now the barrier to entry is even bigger. So it working on both voltages is pretty good. This thing looks amazing. Oh, that's the same comment. Don't mind me. And this video is going to get a little bit long. I wanted to go over these. I wanted to talk about it and then hopefully get your guys' feedback as well if you're still watching. It's probably going to be 20 minutes long or so. Seems huge. Seems huge if you're a tourney kayak angler looking for one motor to do everything you need. Maybe there's a typo in there. Price seems steep compared to other GPS trolling motors, but if you're comparing cost of a bow mount plus stern mount, you realize it's not that much. Yeah, man, being able to put a trolling motor on the front and the back of your kayak and kayak fish is kind of a weird thing for me, but, you know, everyone has a different need, and that's perfectly fine. The world's a big place. Seems like a great alternative to having a Newport and a Minn Kota on your XT130 for about the same expense and a fraction of the weight. That is true. I don't like the trolling motor being in front of me. So I know we're bass fishing for the most part. You guys are bass fishing. I'm not bass fishing. The fish is not very big, so being in front of you is not a big deal. In other fishing environments, the fish being in front of you and the motor being in the water is a huge deal, okay? This guy commented back to that and said, this is what justifies the price. If you're going to get a bow mount and a stern mount trolling motor for your kayak, maybe this solves the problem for one price. It would keep you a lot lighter than having two motors. Please let us know as soon as you know what the top speed is. I'd also like to know if the pedals will fit on a Hobie Outback with the pedal drive installed. Those are great questions. We don't know. We'll come back to the speed thing in a bit. I think you'll be able to rig up a system to put the pedals on any kayak, saying that you could track mount them and they don't require any cords. Garmin sites list the weight at 22.2 pounds for the motor. I think it's a little bit heavier once you factor in the pedals and the fob, or, you know, whatever else, the cables that go to the battery, whatever else. But 25 pounds is a rough estimate. It's pretty good. He said by the time you add a 21-pound battery to it, it's 43 pounds. And that's my goal. That's a great weight, in my opinion. This person's main question is, how will it handle anchor spot lock feature considering it's stern mounted? The push versus pull of staying in place will definitely have more swinging side to side and trying to sit in one place compared to a traditional bow mount. Second thing is, I also think it's underpowered. Not talking top end, I'm talking about handling wind and current. It's going to be in the right direction, though. Definitely a step in the right direction. Excited to see on our testing. You know, I'm excited to test it too because we really do not have a solid answer. We don't know. Now, I agree with this person, okay? His name is Eric, and I have a lot of thoughts about the trolling motor things. I just keep them to myself because people fish differently. It's just what it is. But he says, first off, I don't know why people are so concerned over how fast a kayak should go with a motor. You're not in a high-speed performance bass boat. Stop worrying about speed. 5 miles per hour is pretty dang fast for a kayak. The simplicity of rigging the Garmin alone is worth the price tag. How much rigging and cables and accessories Do you have to mount for a torpedo or those other motors? Not to mention how sensitive the torpedo is to damage and failures. That's going to be a huge question. How reliable is the new Garmin going to be? Are we going to have wireless connection issues? If I hit a log, is it going to damage the motor? Other than that, I think Garmin has hit it out of the park with the new motor. And I said, hey, I'm going to make a video and respond to this comment section, right? I didn't see his response, but he did reply. He said he can't wait to see. I'm going to ICAST next week. I have a lot of questions for Garmin. I would assume that Garmin is going to get pounded with questions at ICAST. I'm not going to ICAST. I don't like groups of people. Like, I'm not ever going to ICAST. He said that he was in kayak fishing a while back when motors were becoming popular. I sold it all and went back to a bass boat. Now I'm thinking about getting back into bass fishing or kayak fishing and rigging one out. I didn't do it because of the ridiculous crap you got to put or have to put on a motor. I can't read. Now that this Garmin has hit the market, it's piqued my interest again. And I think it'll be a big change for a lot of people. And I know the barrier to entry is expensive, but let's just be real here. There are some folks that just have dollars laying around and they want it. They're going to have it the day they can have it, okay? They're going to put it on whatever kayak they want to put it on. And yes, spending 10 to 15 grand on a kayak is absolutely insane. However, it's a lot cheaper than spending 60 to 80K on a fully decked out bass boat and then selling it in 4 years for 40K. It's just how it works in the world. This guy said he talked to the hardcore guys on the West Coast. Great idea, but lacks big power and speed. Garmin's start talking to kayakers before release. This will be a hard flop. No, it's not going to be a hard flop. Like, I don't like necessarily just disagreeing with people. We can have different opinions. And who'd you talk to on the West Coast, right? For a West Coast angler, they got to get across the beach and do all these things, but a lot of people aren't used to because most of the country doesn't have a beach. If they can get across the beach and they can do 4 miles per hour and their kayak is rigged 20 to 30 pounds less, guess what? They're going to be all about that, okay? I hate pushing heavy kayaks across the beach. Everyone I know hates pushing heavy kayaks across the beach. Now, we're going to get into, I believe his name is Josh. Maybe his name is Josh Floyd. We're going to get into that speed and the XTR information in a minute. This comment is 5 miles per hour on a 44-inch wide, 175-pound kayak is slow. This guy said you're not getting 5 miles per hour on an XTR with the Garmin Current. The person who has tested it, now there's limited of these things in a while, so everything is speculation. I don't know who he is. I don't consume much YouTube kayak content. I kayak fished more in a year than most people will fish in their lifetime, and I did it for a decade, okay? I just don't watch it on YouTube. It's just not, I can't do it. I don't think the person who said or replied to a comment and said that it did 5 miles per hour would lie and ruin that person's credibility. That would be absolutely foolish. I just don't think it's a thing. And if he says that it pushed an XTR, which I listed it, I have specs on it. I looked it up, 40 inches wide, 170 pounds. I think it was like 12 foot something long. That's a huge kayak. That's a ton of surface area in the water. If it can push an XTR at 5 miles per hour, well, then a little 77-pound kayak that I want to put it on is going to zoom, okay? Also, I don't think you need that much speed in a kayak. I'm not in that big of a hurry. If I want to be in a hurry, I'm going to buy a boat, and I'm going to get some things done, okay? I could buy a John boat, put a little motor on the back of it, and cruise, man. Same person, word on the street, not enough power for the money. I mean, look at the EPDL system. Look at an autopilot. An autopilot is slow, and EPDL is faster. I don't know. I don't think that the power is going to dictate anything. I don't think the amount of power the unit has is going to matter to anyone who buys it. Period. I think they're going to be like, dang, that thing is light and the functionality of it is awesome. Back to the comment, will travel to fish. Honestly, I don't feel the value versus the dollar is there. 30 pound at 12 volt will struggle to keep just about any kayak on spot, and anything over 15 mile per hour winds. Got some comments about that. And 50 pounds at 24 volts is just below the average 55 pound bow mount. So it is nothing really special. The only thing I see going for it is brushless. I think those that have connections with Garmin or major influencers will get one and promote the hell out of it. But for your average angler, it's way too expensive. I could get a MK Tarova, an NK 180, ring connectors, all these different things for the price of the Force Current alone. Let's start with the price of that. Yeah, you could get all of that stuff for that price, and it is going to be absolutely insanely heavy, and you need 2 batteries. So that, I guess you could use 1 battery. You're just going to run out of battery power way faster and have wires going everywhere. It is not a bass boat. First reply to it, if I see 15-mile-per-hour winds in a forecast, I'll be on my couch for that day anyways. And really, as a person who has fished, like hardcore fished in 15-plus mile-per-hour winds, there's no reason to. There's no reason to do it in a boat 9 times out of 10. I mean, especially to go bass fishing and chase like a 12-inch bass. That's a whole different conversation, okay? Not for me. Follow-up comment for that was by a gentleman named Ted. Garmin doesn't calculate thrust the same as major trolling motor brands. It will be closer to 80 pounds Minn Kota or 90 pound trolling motor. This has always been the case for their trolling motors. Now look, I don't know how accurate that is. I have no idea. I'm not a trolling motor specialist, not my thing. They've always just been too heavy for me to care about. Okay, so maybe the gentleman's name, I said Josh earlier. Maybe his name is Justin Floyd, because this comment, he says T. Campbell said, Justin Floyd did a video on it, and he says it gets 5 miles per hour on his Bonafide XTR. Like I said before, no idea who this guy is. I just don't think a person that has first access to it would ruin their credibility or sell their soul or be that large of a shill for Garmin. I just doesn't make any sense, okay? Back to his comment, does a lot of things trolling motor is designed to do. Control of your vessel, a thoroughly working area, not zip across a lake. That's true. Trolling motors aren't designed to zip you across the place. They are designed to give you control over the platform you are in and provide positioning. That's a really, really good point that I don't think anyone else has made. Rumor is it has been downrated. If enough people complain, no doubt they'll do a faster one. Look, I don't have any contacts in the industry, okay? I'm just a random dude. I keep to myself in the corner. We produce kayak parts. I talk to customers every day, all day. I don't hear any rumors about any of these things. But I own a pretty large business in the community, and I don't hear anything. So I could never figure out how people just say, rumor is this or rumor is that. Where are you getting your information, right? I don't think you should ever believe or repeat things you see on the internet because it's just people typing stuff, okay? So without any kind of credible source, the downrated thing or all these things is useless. We have one source of information right now. Another guy that was in a different country made a video about it too, and he was a little shady in his answering of the speed. He kind of like went to talk about the speed and kind of like, redirected around it. So the speed, I don't think it's going to be 5 miles per hour quite either, but I would be excited if it was. Only problem is that kayak was empty when he was testing it. I doubt it sees 5 on a full loadout. His guess is 4 to 4.5. Okay, so he did test it on a empty kayak. Now, in his video, he said that he was 6'5", 240. And that kayak weighs 170. So if he is 6'5", 240, which, I mean, he looks like a tall dude, so probably is. It don't take much to be 240 if you're 6'5". Then I would assume that's going to be way heavier than any kayak that I ever rigged. Side note, the XTR is not a kayak. The only reason it's labeled as a kayak is because it has scupper holes, but it's more of a pond prowler or a 40-inch wide John boat, but another conversation another day. It's a skiff, it's a boat, it's not really a traditional kayak. Let's see here. There's a lot of comments, responses to that. Just about that thread right there, okay? There's a lot of comments. So this is going to be a long video, man. Instant reverse is big. That's the only benefit of a pedal drive, in my opinion, because you need to be able to hit the brakes and back out when you hook into a big fish. This is why I use an Old Town PDL. That's why I've used a PDL. So I'll be running charters with the PDL. It's why I still make parts for PDLs, because I think it has the best overall fishability. The ability to pedal backwards is king if you ever hook a big fish, period. So I think this guy's points are dead on the money. With the transom motor, the wind will be at your back when you cast. I'm sure the foot controls will become intuitive the more you use it. but I think having one pedal control forward and reverse, while one pedal controls steering like the new canoe, and that's a good point. I think the pedal situation is interesting, and I would like to see, if possible, them be able to send out a software update, and that way you could tell the pedals you want it to do different things. Like if I want my right pedal to go forward and backwards, but I want my left pedal to turn the rudder, or vice versa or whatever, right? I think that's what he's saying there. That would give you so much control. Right now you have the ability to go backwards and forwards, and then you have to use both your feet. I don't know how intuitive it'll be, but hopefully it's super intuitive, okay? Some of these comments are long, man. Sounds pretty sweet. You totally glossed over the Bixby. We're not gonna go into great details about that comment. I did gloss over every other trolling motor because the video wasn't about them. So that comment wasn't that relevant. I glossed over Minn Kota, the Trova, all of them. Okay, the video wasn't about those. From what I've seen on the specs, 50 pounds of thrust, 24. You know, same comment. We don't know. He said a perfect kayak motor would be something like this, but with this power speed of a NK 300, so you can move from spot to spot. That would be cool. There'd be a lot of weight on the back of the kayak, a lot of lifting, that little up and down pull rope and stuff, and maybe they thought it was too much weight for the kayak. So we'll see. I don't know. I'm excited to test it out though. We're gonna scroll through some of these. This guy said I got a Force 50 on my bass boat. Love it. Want one for my kayak. He said there's a learning curve. I said, do you ever have any problems with it? He said there's a learning curve. That was it. Giant step forward for sure. I like the options it creates for anglers with disabilities. This is one of the things that I try to touch on all the time is everybody fishes different. You don't realize that. You know, you think, well, everybody fishes the way I fish. I can give you this cell phone and you can answer the phone all day, and I promise you that by the end of the day, at the end of the week, you'll be like, holy cow, these people fish in a random place. Nothing I do would work. I need a different kayak. I need a different setup. So the world is big. There are a lot of things that people don't consider because they just don't have that much experience. Everyone thinks that they know everything, but it's just not a reality. This guy right here, it's just not enough power, especially for rivers, for lakes. We don't know that. Like, we don't know. It also comes with 2 props. So one is supposed to be weedless and one is high efficiency. So that's something else to consider. We don't know any of those things, and I didn't watch Justin's detail to like listen to everything he said. I kind of clicked through it. I was really looking at the motor. Maybe he touched on that, but coming with 2 props, being able to test both of those, see if there's a difference in open water, that is my goal. Obviously, we're going to be able to sell these things on our website, but I'm not going to sell them without being like, hey, we tested it. I love it. Wish I could afford it. Yeah, it is expensive. I said that hopefully the technology eventually lowers in price a little bit, but doubtful will be years, and everything just keeps getting more expensive. Time to save up for this bad boy. I agree. This video was kind of a time suck. This video is probably a time suck too. If you have the money to throw around, it's a great product. Can't argue that. However, if you're a limited budget, it does not justify enough for the price. I think that this comes back to speed. I think everybody is so focused on the speed and not even knowing yet. Let's see. I've been waiting for someone I trust to talk about this thing. I am waiting to see some people use it like at iCast. I want to see it put on a different kayak. I don't think the XTR is the perfect solution for it. I think something like the Smalley, the Shoaly, even a 106 paddle or a 120 paddle kayak with that thing on the back, a minimal layout, no wires, 1 battery installed in the front hatch. Simple. Okay, the video is 24 minutes long. If you're still watching, thank you. That's a long video. I wanted to talk about those comments. I look forward to reading the comments that you guys leave. I know I've said I would make videos like this for years, and I just don't do it because I get so busy. Okay, so there it is, the first video of me just sitting in the garage reading comments and rambling. Okay, if you enjoyed it, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe, and go down there and leave me a comment and tell me your thoughts. Okay, thanks for watching.